I've been curious about is how have you um, I don't want to say educated the community about him, but to the point to where you said what you have a Charles Hackley Day.
Yes, when the library was dedicated back in 1890, those city fathers decided to declare Hackley Day. And it's a tradition that's still followed today. And the kids on that day get half a day of school. Half the day that they're there, they are in assemblies learning about Charles Hackley and the benefits and his contributions to today's society here, and then they get the day off. And so we still celebrate that. But if you go around Muskegon very far, you run into the Hackley name all the time. So um, I think most people are aware of him. Obviously Hackley is everywhere. We do school programs, and it's part of the area school curriculum. You do neighborhoods one year, and the next year you do city histories, and then you do your state histories, that sort of thing. So about third and fourth grade, we have school groups in here all during the spring and in the fall. And we do tours of the houses, and we talk about Charles Hackley.
So that's because a lot of cities have lost their historical orientation, where they just totally ignore that, or they take it for granted, or people who, well, I'm referring to Fort Wayne, my city, and I had the impression that people don't care. So you're suggesting that the school, the city, everybody has to work in unison to promote the common heritage of the land.
Absolutely. I don't see how you can ignore that. I mean, the past is how you got where you are. You can't ignore what brought you here, and hopefully you learn from the past so that your future is a little bit better. And you've got to do that starting with the kids. If the kids aren't interested, then you've lost a generation. I like to think that we're building the next generation to be caretakers of the Hackley and history, and therefore the Muskegon history.
What fascinates you most about this type of work? I mean, I feel a certain zeal coming from you.
I don't. It's just very fascinating to see. People seem to be so into themselves, and here's a man that really was the rags to riches story that we all are told that everybody can be. So he's sort of an icon, I guess. He came from nothing, and he was very wealthy, and then he gave back to people so that they had a step up that they may not have had without him. So Hackley is really Muskegon's history. And being a native, of course, that makes it more interesting to me. And I don't know, I've always liked history anyway, so it was a good
Okay,
fit.
now you just mentioned something about the about Charles Hackley and about his legacy, and you're talking about first his hospital. They did not turn away the poor.
Right. He set up funded not really a wing, but beds, and they are not allowed to turn you away because you have no insurance. They have to treat you. It's not, some hospitals, if you don't have insurance, they're going to send you across town. Well, his hospital is top notch, and it was then, it continues to be one of the best hospitals around. And they will not turn you away simply because you can't afford to pay for it. And that is part of his legacy. And it's partially run, there have to be a certain number of board members that belong to the church that he left a lot of the monies to kind of run the hospital until it became bigger business, of course. But they're still members of that church that are on that board and have ultimate say in a lot of things that go on there. So
And also, you mentioned that part of his legacy would be about education.
absolutely, he funded, of course, this wonderful library that we have here, and he funded and helped build and helped with bonds and so on, several schools over the years that he lived here. And in fact, one was a manual training center, and it was open to anybody and everybody that wanted an education. If if you didn't necessarily want to go higher up in school, you could go to the manual training center and learn woodworking and metal molding and
Across racial lines.
absolutely. There was no stopping, just because you were too poor or the wrong color. But now I do want to point out that Muskegon was probably 99% white.
It was too cold here for blacks to be here.
Well, actually, it was during the Second World War. They were recruiting from the South because Muskegon made a lot of the armory here, a lot of the tanks and the trucks, and still do. And there just wasn't enough. The factories were running 3 shifts, full blast, and there weren't enough men here in the area. We actually went south and actively promoted blacks to move up north for the jobs.
In Fort Wayne, I had a chance to meet people who actually, that was their job, was go back south and get guys just like them, the big and
Right.
strong, to come to work.
Right.
And that's what, in my opinion, freed the slaves, was World War
Right.
II and these jobs up here.
Sure.
But in Muskegon, it was just too cold.
It was cold. It's too cold for a lot of us, but yeah, it's so. To my knowledge, nobody has ever been turned away because of color. But I also don't want anybody to get the impression that that there was no racial problems at that point, but there wasn't really much racial differences. It was mostly Italian and German and English. Scandinavian, a lot of Scandinavian and Irish, of course, so, which of course had their own problems, and it had nothing to do with skin color. So, but it still stands to say that there are no racial barriers. You can do whatever you pretty much want to do here, as far as I know. But of course, I'm a privileged white person. What do I know?